Morning and welcome to Essential Ingredients. I'm your host, Justine Reichman. With me today is Gita. She is the founder of Neeshi. So Gita founded this product as a way to help her daughter. Her daughter was struggling with heavy, uncomfortable period cramps. So this product is meant to help those that are dealing with heavy period cramps and menopause challenges. So we're going to chat with Gita today to learn more about her journey and how she is helping people that are dealing with these kinds of symptoms. And I know firsthand because I too had really bad period cramps, which is why I've been on the pill for a very long time. And now I'm coming around to the other end of it where I want to get off the pill and I'm a bit fearful of how I'm going to feel. So, Gita, if you would just introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about Neeshi so that we have some context as we dive into this conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Justine. I'm very excited to be here. So I'm
Pleasure.
Gita Vellanki, as Justine said, founder of Neeshi. So basically, we take superfoods and we transform them into delicious chocolate options. So we have dark cacao spreads, we have protein powders, we have some brownie bites and brownie batter, which are more local ship because they ship cold. And really, the goal was to help my daughter, who was struggling with really heavy, really painful periods at the time. And we'll go into what she was dealing with and sort of what she saw. But my goal was to help her more from a natural perspective. I was the same way when I was her age. My mom eventually put me on birth control, and I felt terrible for years. Headaches, stomach aches, GI issues, like you name it. And I still think it's had a lasting impact on me, even though I'm off the pill. So I didn't want to do that to her if I didn't have to. And so here we are. And I'd love to share more of the story as we chat.
Yeah, Gita, thank you so much because I think this is so important for so many people. It connects with so many people. There's so many women out there that deal with these issues. I know when I had my period, or I may still do, I'm just on a pill, but the week before, the week during, and the week after, I was
Yes.
nauseous, tired, cranky, not very friendly, and and all sorts of things. But 3 weeks out of the month is a really long time to
Right.
not feel
It
good,
is.
right? So now you're talking about GI issues and all those things, which I feel like I have. And so I'm curious and I'm eager to learn for myself as well as so that everybody else can make more informed choices. How this can help those both in menopause and in dealing with periods, and a little bit more about what it's rooted in. So let's kick this off with before we get going, have you been an entrepreneur before? Is this your
I
first?
have, yeah, I have not. My dad had his own business growing up, so we would always help him. And I've helped other, businesses within businesses scale throughout my career, but this is my first solo entrepreneur journey, and it's been quite a learning experience, that's for sure.
I bet. I mean, being an entrepreneur, I think, takes a special kind of, I don't want to say special, but I think it takes a different kind of person than
Yes.
one that, it's a leader versus a follower or an innovator versus, somebody that's just doing a job. And there's nothing wrong with either one. We need
Right.
both in the world, right? But I imagine that when you kick this off, it might have been a little scary, out of your comfort zone, uh,
100%. All of the above.
especially creating a product, right? So there's a whole list of things you had to learn. So when you decided to do this, what was like the first thing you did?
So, never with the intention of launching a brand. I created these for my daughter, right? So, it was let me help her in a more holistic way. And I thought back to when we were kids, we would visit my grandmother in the village of India. And every time something minor was wrong with us, she would go to the kitchen first, not the pharmacy. And so my mom took the same approach. And I've always grown up around that concept of functional foods. Every food has a healing property, and how do you best leverage that? And as my kids were growing up, we've dealt with allergies, food intolerances, things like that. So we've had to put them on restrictive diets. We've had to closely monitor how they react. As I've gotten older, I've, experienced some intolerances and things that had developed. And so in my mind as a mom, if I was going to go down this path, it had to be very nutritionally balanced. So all of our products are plant-based, they're gluten-free, they're refined sugar-free, they have really good macros. So you're getting 5 grams of protein, you're getting fiber, you're not having a ton of carbs. But then from the kids' perspective, it had to taste good, right? No mom's
Yeah.
going to want to argue every day to get them to eat it either. And so we started researching ingredients, talking to doctors to make sure there were no adverse reactions, and all the doctors were like, we looked through our databases, we couldn't find anything, but at the end of the day, you're using such clean ingredients, we don't see a concern, right? We're talking about almonds and pumpkin seeds and cacao and coconut sugar and flax seeds and things like that. And so our first product was a brownie bite. And when we hit the right formulation, we did a lot of testing. My daughter's her skin cleared up pretty quickly. And then her period went from 8, 9 days, super heavy flow, such painful cramps, acne all over, to 3.5 days, I would say maybe 4. Such light flow, no cramps, super balanced mood. I mean, it was just amazing to see the transformation. And my periods had gone back to my miserable teenage self as well. But with the caveat that I was getting them every 14 to 18 days for
Oh,
10
wow.
days. So to your point of feeling miserable for 3 weeks out of the month, I was miserable as well. But my cramps had become so debilitating. I was just stuck in bed for 2 days, couldn't do anything. And with 3 kids, that's really hard. And so what I noticed is not only did I see that same period transformation of it becoming so light, so mild, so unnoticeable, my perimenopause went away. I wasn't waking up in a pool of sweat every night. I wasn't having hot flashes. My energy levels were back. My cravings had been minimized. I was just feeling back to my energetic, balanced self. And to your point of it being something different, I left my day job, which was running M&A and global operations teams for tech companies, to now run a CPG company. So
Right.
it's a new learning every day where you're talking about packaging and licenses and booth setup and marketing, right? Very, very
Yeah,
different.
definitely. And it sounds like your experience and your foundation was rooted in food from the very beginning,
Yes.
from your grandmother's house, from your mom's house, and that you solve problems using food, and food becomes the medicine or the way to heal yourself,
Right.
which also makes me think that maybe food is the problem.
100%. I mean, just think about what we're eating nowadays that we didn't eat 20, 30 years ago. It's definitely, I think, impacting our gut health, or so much that's going on in our body.
So, did you imagine yourself opening this CPG company originally? Like, I know you didn't plan on it because you were just playing with it, but like, did you say, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
No, I had reached the point in my career where I really wanted to give back. So in my corporate jobs, I would spend a lot of time working with the foundations of different companies that I worked with, just helping them scale from an operational perspective, use their funds more efficiently. So in my mind, I wanted to shift over to that nonprofit world to give back. And I kept thinking, well, maybe I'll go volunteer for some nonprofits, eventually start one, and that would be the path to sort of giving back and helping women or helping people. And then I realized I have something right here in front of me that can do that. And so that's where that next step kind of formed and kicked off.
But it's a big deal to go from making something for your family and friends to then deciding this is going to be a CPG product. So, obviously, without having done this before, you lack the experience. Doesn't mean you can't do it because everybody that's an entrepreneur probably never did it before, right? So, what were some of the things that you thought about as you started to do this that you're like, okay, I really need to make this a business. What am I doing first?
So I reached out to a lot of people because my entire network was folks in the tech space, or, coming from in the world of investment banking before that. And so just networking, understanding what other founders went through. I was lucky enough to stumble upon a small business community that is just so helpful. And so I think that really made a change. And then just through that networking, growing those mentors and those people that you can rely on for feedback and questions and, advice on how to move forward was really helpful as well.
I would, yeah, of course, being part of that community. I always say I grew up in New York, and to me, it was like a village. I know people
Yeah.
think it sounds big and sounds unfriendly many times, but being living in New York, growing your business in New York, there's just such a tight community around you. And to that
Yes.
end, I think people in CPG are also a really tight community that are willing to help one another share resources.
Yes, they
So
are.
I think that unless you're doing that, you don't really know that or expect that.
So I would say the biggest surprise was actually women who are running similar companies, right? Normally you would say, oh, you're a competitor. I'm not going to share information with you. They have been the most supportive people. So it's definitely been great to meet people who are going through similar struggles, willing to talk you through it and share. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's so many resources out there. You just have to know how to find them or where to look for them.
What would you recommend to those founders looking for those resources? Are there like 3 tips you could share?
So I would say Startup CPG now has a much larger presence than it did 2 years ago.
Oh
That's
my
an
God, it's
amazing
huge.
community. Yeah, but it's great. I mean, they are so supportive. People are really helpful. For, let's see, for founders of color, there's a group called Included, which is similar to Startup CPG, but just focused on founders from the BIPOC community, which is also amazing. And then I would say more than that, find a local network, right? To your point, New York has so many CPG founders, same thing in the Bay Area and LA, like all these cities have groups.
Mhm.
There's Naturally Networked, which is in different cities. So I would say joining a group like that and connecting with people is definitely going to make a difference.
I agree. I mean, I'm now in the Bay Area myself, and I think that, it's a little bit awkward, right? For some people, not everybody's an extrovert, and
Right.
it doesn't always come naturally to putting yourself out there. I don't know if you're an introvert or you're not, but I'm really great in small groups. In bigger groups, I find it a little bit more intimidating.
Yeah.
So for those folks, is there any recommendations you might make for them? Because there's lots of people that would find that really intimidating.
It's definitely intimidating. I would say take a friend, right? Even if they're not in the CPG space, buy them a drink at the event and make an evening out of it. It definitely helps to not go alone. Um, but yeah, I think part of that success of an entrepreneur is owning your story and really taking control of that journey. And so you have to put yourself out there and, do it in the way that you're going to find some comfort along the way. But every day you're going to be in uncomfortable situations, whether it's in a public environment or it's because you're dealing with a problem you've never dealt with before. You're trying to tackle some solution, right? I think that has to be something you're prepared for.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I didn't go for my MBA, but I feel like running your own business is like an on-the-job MBA.
A
You're
hundred
sort of
percent.
learning how to build something out. You're learning
Yeah,
how to market something. You're learning how to brand something. And it's a process. It's
it is.
process.
It is for sure. And
I
once you
think
figure it out, something changes and you have to figure a new problem out again. So
it's true. So now you've been at this for how long now?
2 years.
2 years. Okay. And when you initially started, were you bootstrapping it or did you decide to raise money originally? Can you tell me a little bit about that process for you?
So we're still bootstrapped. I have had investors reach out to me. I've considered raising money. I don't think it makes sense right now. Um, if I were to take money from someone, it would have to be somebody who's really willing to be a mentor versus just writing a check, right? Just not coming from the world of CPG. I feel like that would be the most valuable thing outside of just the check that I'm taking.
So it must be challenging, right? To be doing this, bootstrapping it, doing the marketing, building the product, figuring out where
Yeah.
you're going to get it, processed and co-packed and, et cetera. So, I know in the very beginning, you're probably reaching out to people and asking them to share with them what they did. Can you share with us
Yes.
what worked for you and how you managed to be able to do these things while being
So I'm
bootstrapped?
still trying to solve a lot of those problems. So we started off very small with a CFO permit, which gives you permission to, you take food safety exams, follow certain protocols, and you can make product in your house and ship within the state of California. And then we started getting interest outside of the state. So we moved to a commercial kitchen in Oakland. And now I've been down the path of trying to find a co manufacturer so that I can remove myself and the kitchen staff from that whole process. Just because to self manufacture, fulfill, and run with the business and figure out everything else it's a lot. And so I'm hope we're getting closer to finding some good co-packers. And so that's really the next step for us. But whether you're bootstrapped or that initial seed funding, I think you're still going to run into those same challenges of having to be very cautious with where you spend your money. And there are a couple of the bigger investments I've made are more on the marketing side. So hiring some different marketing firms along the way. And it's so hard. It's so hard to find somebody who's good. And the problem is they all want to retain or for, 6 months and more, which I understand why. But unfortunately, none of them have fit the bill and have been worthy of that 6 month retainer. So I was very gun shy with finding the next firm, and so I went through a lot of due diligence with the folks we're working with now, did a lot of calls for referrals, things like that. And the other firms previously were all referred, which made it a lot harder.
Right.
But knock on wood, like so far, this firm that I found has been amazing. Actually, they came to me and said, "We love your product. We'd love to work with you." And it's definitely been an extension of having an in house team. And so far, it's been really good.
It's true. So when you started this and you chose, you were making some larger investments in marketing, how did you go about deciding what were those big investments that you were going to make that were going to take your product to the next level or help you take that product to the next level?
So we started very small with that approach. Initially, it was just outreach to, for me, having that medical validation was important. So we
Mhm.
started doing outreach to doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, some who have an online presence and some who don't. All of our healthcare specialists that we work with have fully tried our products. Some of them still use it on a regular basis, and they've seen a huge benefit, which I think is just that extra validation stamp that's amazing to have. Um,
Definitely.
and then we reached out to some influencers. One of my friends is an influencer, so she would post, just here and there if she'd run into me at events or things like that. And I started realizing how much that's resonating with people. So then I started doing micro influencer, some larger influencer outreach, and that's been really helpful. We don't have the budget yet to pay somebody ongoing, but we've done some revenue share affiliates, and that's been really helpful because I think they also, because it's not, a small price point like a lipstick, it's a larger order value. They're also seeing the benefit in partnering with us. And then now this new marketing firm that we've brought on board is focusing more on email marketing, social media. Hopefully we'll start running ads soon, maybe listing on Amazon and just seeing where these things take us.
It's super exciting. So right now, you've been doing this a couple of years. How many people are on your team?
Um, I fully believe in child labor, so my girls are
I believe
very,
in that
very
too.
involved. So it's me and then my girls, and then I have some staff at the kitchen that helps
How
with,
old are your
like
girls?
17, 13, and 9. So they all have their little spot they play in. My older one and my middle one will make reels, they'll help package up orders. They do a lot of pop-ups, manning in-person events. They've taken pictures on our website. They'll do like graphic design work. So from that perspective, it's fun to bring them along. It's made their public speaking skills just like advance 20 years, which I think as a mom is really hard to do unless you're putting them in these situations. But getting a kid to stand up in front of a room full of people and talk about their period is just, it's teaching skills you wouldn't ever have before. And they're so comfortable doing it, which is amazing.
When you first said my daughter, I was like, I wonder how she feels. How does your daughter feel about being the inspiration for this?
Very proud. She's there with me. She owns it. And it's really nice to see.
Because kids, she's 17 now, or is it the
Yes.
younger one? So 17. So when she was a little bit younger, she might have been embarrassed, right, to have all
She
that focus on
wasn't.
her. Not what you're
The,
doing. I just had the focus on her.
yeah. So this all started when she was 13. And, just like trying it for her, then sharing it with people, then slowly growing. Um, and she was always very open. And so, when I was a kid, I told them when I was a kid and growing up in Wisconsin, we would like shove our pad under our sleeve, hoping it wouldn't make any noise. And we would walk down the hallway, right? And you were so embarrassed to talk about it. And I said, one day I hope you guys will just hold your pad or your tampon and walk down the hall and not be bothered. And the two older ones were like, Mom, we already do that.
Oh
Nobody
my
cares. And I
We
was
used
like,
to
oh
stick them
my
in our
God.
sweaters. Do you remember that? I used to stick it
Yeah,
in my
I would
sweater
tuck it in my shirt, right?
when I would go to the bathroom.
And they will yell across the hallway like, "Hey, do you have a pad?" And their friend will chuck one at them, and it's just so different, and it just makes me so happy because it is not a taboo topic, and it's not something that people should feel ashamed about because without it none of us would be here, right?
Yeah, no, true. It's very, very true. And it's so nice to hear that your daughter wasn't, because it
Right.
is a challenging topic. And, the girls don't necessarily want to talk about it in front of the boys, or, they're younger, and it is part of life. But I think somehow either the kids are growing up more mature these days, or they're realizing that, things are just part of life and it's not something to
Yes,
be embarrassed about. Maybe it's just the education that we're throwing around things. I don't really know the answer to that question, but it is nice to see that.
it is for sure. I was at a women's health event down in LA a couple months ago. And, just like I flew down for the day, super busy the whole time, flew back. And I came back to my daughter and her boyfriend having created a recipe of this chocolate peanut butter protein bark using our Nishi protein powder. And they filmed this adorable TikTok reel. So they like created the recipe, filmed it, edited
Wow.
it, did everything, had it ready to go by the time I got back. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, and the fact that he was so comfortable doing it with her, wanting, letting me post it to Instagram and social media. It was amazing. I was so proud of them. And the recipe is awesome. So if
Well, I want to
anybody's listening
try
to this
that.
and orders the protein powder, definitely look it up and make it. It's so tasty.
Wow. And I love that it's starting at home and you're sort of instilling
Yes.
those values in your children to be part of it. It's like a family business, right? I mean,
Right.
obviously, your daughter's probably goes to school and she's not staying home to make,
Right.
the product, but you get what I'm saying, that it's part of the
All
values.
involved in different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when my mom started her business at the dining room table when I was a little girl, I used to help. I worked in every aspect of that business until
Yeah.
it grew. She had
Amazing.
45 people at the end, and by the
That's
time the
phenomenal.
end, I was the vice president. But the point was that I started with the yellow pages at the
Right.
table
Yep. Yep.
back when we had phone books.
That's funny, but that's amazing. It definitely left an impact on you. It's leaving an impact on the girls. So you just tried our Nishi dark cacao
Yes,
spread,
I
which
did. I
is
wanted to try it while I was on here.
it has become our hero product. So I will say women who are menstruating love it, women who are in perimenopause love it. And one great thing about this product is it has a 2-to-1 ratio, which is really, really hard to find in sweet treats. And what that means is if you look at the fat and the carbs, they're
Mhm.
pretty much equal. And then you have half or more of that in protein. So it's 9 grams of fat, 9 grams of carbs, and it's 5 grams of protein in 1 tablespoon. And it's refined sugar free. So it gives you a hint of sweetness.
Mhm.
I feel like it's just enough and it's satiating, but it's not like Nutella where you just like, it's like crack and you have to keep going
Well,
back,
I was
right?
going to say, as everybody just, for those that are watching the podcast, you saw that I just tasted it. Then I went back for seconds, but I literally just put it on the knife, right? And it tastes really good. And I don't like things that are too sweet.
Right,
Um,
same.
that's just not my thing. But this is nice. It's a little bit sweet. It's a little bit salty. And, I think that there's a lot of different ways that you can eat this product, not just with a spoon,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So people will do toast or waffles with bananas or berries on top, top it on a fruit bowl, a parfait, an ice cream. You can put it in your smoothie to make it a little extra creamy. It's really good stirred into like tea or coffee. And it's funny, at a lot of my pop-up events, women will ask, well, how do I incorporate this? And so I'll give them all those examples. And I was like, you know what? I'm at the point where I just eat it with a spoon because I like it that way. And I'll see them, if I happen to run into them later, they're like, you know what? I started out with this fancy toast or this and that. And they're like, I eat it with a spoon now too.
Well, I mean, I think
So,
that that's a testament to the product that it stands on its
yes.
own, right?
Yeah, for
And it's
sure.
always interesting to hear your favorite ways as the founder to how you like to eat it. So you like it best with a spoon. Now, when I first was listening to these, they sounded amazing, but you know what came to me was like an apple.
Oh, it's really good on an apple.
Wouldn't
So
it
I'll
be
do
good?
that often too. Like
Yes,
with the
a
with a green
slice.
apple, it's really
Yes.
tasty. Yeah.
I mean, but I think that there's so many. It'd be fun to actually ask people to send in their recipes and how they eat it,
Yes.
see what their favorites are. You probably do that, but I think it'd be fun to see that and how that helps evolve helps the product get evolved even further. So,
So
right, go
I
on,
do
sorry.
ask people, and the most interesting one I got was somebody uses our vanilla protein powder in their salad dressing. And I was like, that's really interesting.
That
I
is
don't think I'm going to
interesting.
do that, but very unique.
That's what I think. So you've grown this product. It's been a few years. You've wrangled the family. They're all participating. You have some people in your kitchen that are helping to create product, and you've grown this, and that's a lot. And so, what is your hope? You have how many SKUs out right now?
That's not an easy answer. I mean, there's a lot of research involved there to get to that point. It was a lot of late nights, a lot of digging, a lot of reading, and really just learning about different ingredients, different vitamins, different minerals, because at the end of the day, it's the high quality vitamins and minerals that your body's able to absorb from the ingredients that we source, right? So we're not using minimum quality cacao powder, for example.
Right.
It's sourced based on a certain vitamin and mineral profile. Same thing with the nuts and seeds and different things that we use. So that's all working together to then give your body that support that your hormones need. So it's a lot, there's vitamin E plays a role, magnesium plays a role, lignans play a role. And so there's all of these things that we're getting from the food that then your body's taking advantage of and using.
Yeah, super smart. And I love the idea that you can use food as a way to mitigate symptoms. Really smart. And of course, the research that goes into it must be very in depth. And I know you mentioned previously that you had doctors that you sent it to. And so, what were some of the questions that they asked in order to vet it and make sure that this was something, not just tasting it, but understanding the product? What did they ask you or need to know?
So, what was interesting to me is some of the doctors, the part that they found the most helpful and that made them feel really comfortable was the fact that the benefits go away when you stop using the product. So
Mm.
it's not altering your body, right? It's not doing anything massive, but it's supporting you while you're having it, which is like a vitamin. And they really appreciated that. But they were looking at, the ingredients, if there's any known interactions with commonly taken drugs. What were we using? Where were we sourcing from to make sure it was good quality? And we buy organic where possible. We buy, so it's
Mhm.
all it was my goal was really to check as many boxes as possible, to make sure that I would feel 100% comfortable with my kids eating it, and I would want other people to feel the same way, whether they're feeding it to their daughters or they're buying it for themselves. And what I found is most people are buying it for themselves because it's really those women in perimenopause that are looking for help. And so I wanted them to feel, as comfortable as possible that what they're putting in their body is healthy and good quality and good for you at the same time.
So, what category would you put this in, Nishi?
That is a hard one. I mean, so we did a survey and it was amazing. We got 300 responses in like 18 hours,
Wow.
which tells me people really are interested in a product like this. And most people said they would expect to find it in a functional food aisle. So, say where you find protein powders, or if possible, where the menstrual products are. They wouldn't want to find it, say, with nut butters or things like that.
Right.
So, I think in a functional food area or in a specialty location like a wellness clinic or a doctor's office or a spa or things like that.
I think that's super interesting because that was one of the first things I thought, like, where would I go to find this? So if I'm
Hmm.
looking for support for perimenopause or my period or whatever it is, I would go to the aisle that has like the supplements, or I'd go to the aisle that has support for that issue because
Yes,
you would not know that a CPG product is necessarily just on its own, standing there by itself, something that's going to support
exactly.
that.
Yep. So there are vitamins and supplements in the menstrual health aisle. So I think that would obviously make the most sense. Or I would say, if I'm thinking in my local Target, if you go on the other side of that aisle, you have protein bars and protein powders and things like that. So that might make the most sense as well. But this is one reason I haven't rushed to retail. There's so much education involved that we've stayed direct to consumer for the most part because I just feel like those little kinks need to be worked out. We need to increase brand awareness. Then when you're like, oh, Nishi, I saw that online, let me pick this up. But that connection still has to be made.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, if we think about COVID, started direct to consumer and did really well at
Yeah.
that. It gave them an opportunity to grow a foundation, build a foundation, grow an audience. People get curious. They feel like they're more connected because
Yes.
it's a smaller community. So I love that. I think that's amazing. Do you have an idea when you expect to expand and be more available, be available to people outside of direct to consumer?
So I would say maybe that's something we tackle next year because the retail process is very different. Right now you're talking about meeting huge minimums and free fills and just that's a different world from direct to consumer. So we'll see. If an opportunity comes up and it's really interesting, we might get there sooner, but it's not my top priority at the moment.
So, what are your top priorities for the next year?
I think I would really like to explore Amazon before we explore retail. There's such a market there for perimenopause supplements, and it's kind of the best of both worlds, right? People are coming to look for that. You could do a little more education by having your Amazon landing page. You can run ads, and so you can educate your consumer in a place where they're looking for these products. So I'm once we get our co-packers squared away, I think that's going to be the next step.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, because once
Yeah.
investigate Amazon, you create a whole new world. How does that
Yes.
potentially impact as a small business what you're creating? So I think maybe the co-packer has to happen first so that you're
Yes.
not in the
So the
kitchen.
we're rebranding right now. So the
Oh,
rebranding has to happen. The co-packer has to happen. And so Amazon actually reached out to us,
oh,
which everybody's like, that doesn't happen. Are you
I
sure
never
it's
heard of that.
Amazon? Are you sure it's not a scammer? I was like, no, they actually reached out. It's an Amazon.com email. And so they have a team that's been super excited about getting us on board. And so we'll see. I just, I told them where we're at and the fact that we need to check a couple of these boxes, which they completely understood. So hopefully that happens sooner.
That sounds great. So, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm just wondering if you could share with us a little for those folks that want to go direct to consumer,
Yeah.
where they can find you and how they might go about buying your product.
So you can find us online at neeshi.com. It's neeshi.com. There is a chat box there. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask and I will get back to you myself. We also are on Instagram at Shop Nishi, Facebook at Shop Nishi. So that's our social handle and you can find us on all the platforms as well.
So, Gita, for those guests that tuned in and watched or listened to the whole podcast, is there a discount we can offer them for the product?
Absolutely. So if you were to sign up directly on our website, you'll get a code for 10% off. But for your viewers, if they want to use Essential 15, then that'll give them 15% off.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Gita, we are going to follow along and make sure to catch up with your journey as you grow and expand. And I can't wait to see what else you come up with and where else you're going to be. Keep me posted as I'm in the Bay Area.
Yes, I will. Thank you so much for sharing about Nishi with your viewers and your listeners. This has been great.
Yeah, I loved how you incorporate your whole family and how this was a new endeavor for you and how you bootstrapped it, got it done, incorporated your team, and you're making it happen. So it's really inspirational.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in today at Essential Ingredients. For those of you, please know we have a new episode that drops every Tuesday, and we hope you'll tune in and follow us on Instagram at essential.ingredients. Thanks so much.